Hello and welcome to Yes, You Are Brave. This is a podcast where we are going to set off on a journey together to find and build our brave, where we explore all the ways that you have been brave and all the ways that you can be brave again. Because even though we may have forgotten or we may have fallen out of practice, we're all brave. And I'm on a mission to prove it and help you believe that yes, you are brave. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Yes, You Are Brave. Super excited you're here. We have a fantastic show planned. Have a good friend here, Taryn Hewett, who is going to talk to us all things brave and believing in yourself and trusting yourself that you can figure things out. So, here we go. All right, so thank you so much, Taryn, for being here today. We're so excited to have you on and to hear your brave story. So, if you want to start with just give us a little nutshell snapshot of who is Taryn.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm super excited about it. But yes, my name is Taryn, and I live in Florida with my husband and my two dogs, and I wear a few hats actually. So I am a senior leader in human resources, and I've been doing that for about 12 years now. But then I also am the owner of Happy Thoughts Coaching. And through that, I help overachievers find meaningful work-life balance, which is something I am very, very passionate about. And then beyond that, I'm just an avid podcast listener. So that makes me even more excited to be on here and to be a part of, the wonderful show that you've got going.
That's awesome. And so you are doing your full-time job, corporate job, and you're coaching at the same time.
Yes, absolutely. Which is why it's a focus on overachievers, right? Because there are so many people out there who are doing similar things, right? You've got, you're multi-passionate, or you have a day job and you're trying to start something else, whatever the case is. Sometimes you have a lot on your plate and you have to figure out how to keep doing that in a way that's healthy and makes you excited to keep going. So that's what it's all about.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, what kind of dogs do we have?
I have a Sheltie. So Indy is, well, he's short for Indiana Jones, is our Sheltie. So he's about 2. And then we have Buddy is a Jack Russell Terrier mix. And he is, gosh, about 12 at this point, almost 13.
Fun stuff.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, cool. Just wanted to throw that out there, get to know you just a tiny bit. And so, yeah. Again, thank you for coming on and being willing to share your stories with us. And I'm just going to turn it over to you to tell us your brave story. I will jump in as needed.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to do this. And, as I was trying to think through moments in my life where I kind of looked back and felt like I was that I had noticed moments of bravery, right? I really started to notice this trend where it was moments of discomfort or potential for high discomfort where I really leaned into just trusting myself and trusting that I would be able to figure it out, right? So one of the very first instances that really came to mind for me was, I mentioned that I'm married right now. I've been married for 10 happy years to my wonderful husband, but I was actually married once before, and my ex had actually gotten he had joined the military, and we got stationed in a completely different city in a completely different state away from all of my friends and family. And about 6 months later or so, we ended up getting divorced. And so, right around the time that we were getting divorced, I also had gotten a new job opportunity. And so it was this really big question at the time, right? Of, all my friends and family were inviting me to come back home or inviting me to move where they were. I had an outpouring of support, but it all of those options felt like I would be going backwards and I wanted to move forward, right? And
Yeah.
so I made this really big decision at that point to stay in a place where I knew no one. I didn't have friends, I didn't have family. We were not, my ex and I were not financially well off. So I think when I moved out, my mom had to help me get a deposit on an apartment because we had like $50 in our bank account or something like that. And so that was, I think, probably like the first big moment that comes to mind where I just had to trust myself to figure it out.
That is crazy. Awesome, but a little bit crazy as well. Crazy is
Yeah,
usually awesome.
well, it is, and it's funny because, it's one of those things that it was very scary at the time, but I also look back on it as probably one of the first moments in my life where I really started to find myself, right?
Mhm.
Because I was on my own, so I threw myself into, making new friends, threw myself into just kind of figuring out what I wanted going forward and what I wanted out of my next relationship whenever that would happen to come. So it was a really big period of self-discovery. And I think having that faith in myself to figure it out really went a long way in making that such a valuable experience.
That is awesome. Well, that faith in yourself and trust that you can figure it out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so many of us are going to go through moments like that, right? That are
Yeah.
just, they're just, all out scary. But there's support that comes in so many different ways. And so I just feel like, having that moment. All right, that did not come out very well. That last little bit, but that's okay.
Yeah. Well, it's that figuring out that you can actually do it yourself, that you have what it takes to having that moment of discovery of like, oh wait, I can actually do this. Like this is okay. I've got this. Like I'm more
Yes.
capable than I think.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I always joke about stories from that time frame, like, these things they sound really dumb, right? But they were so exciting. Like the example that I always think of is the first time I had to hang curtains in my apartment. And I'd always had a guy or a parent or somebody around to do it. And, at this point I was in my early 20s. I didn't had hadn't been without a parent or my ex, and so I had to Google how to hang curtains and how to make sure I did it the right way, and then it was like this huge moment of triumph that I had done it on my own. Like now I look back and I laugh at it, but it felt amazing at the time.
And that's awesome to have those moments. I think it's we all have those moments where you're like, oh, that was so cool. I did it. And you're like, okay. But there's a first time for everything. And some of those things they seem little, but they're big in the moment.
Mhm. Yes,
So that's
yeah,
awesome.
absolutely. So the next thing that really comes to mind when I think about this, right, is I mentioned that when I was going through that divorce, I had actually just started a new, well, at the time I thought it was just a new job. What it actually ended up being was the start to the human resources career that I mentioned, right? So that was, like I said, about 12 years ago. And I didn't realize it at the time that that's what I would be doing for the next 12 years of my life, would be working in that. And but I had started, and that was very much an entry level role that I had never tried human resources before. It was just kind of a leap to give this a shot and see if I liked it. Um, and about 2 years later, I was given an opportunity to be a manager in a pretty big location with a lot of decent number of employees and a very big leap in responsibility.
Hmm.
And that was kind of the next thing that came to mind because it was one of these opportunities that I wasn't expecting. So I had not actually applied for it. My manager at the time knew that I was interested in promoting, and we had been doing some development activities. And she just kind of came to me one day and said, "Hey, this role opened up. We think that you would be good for it." And So it was one of these whirlwind situations where it kind of came out of nowhere, and um, not only was a big change in my responsibility level, but it required us to move about an hour away, roughly. So also a very big change. I had made lots of friends when I got divorced, when I was out there, going through that self-discovery. So it was another period of kind of like moving away, kind of shifting where my life was centered, and then taking on this big, new, very, very scary role that has way more responsibility to it. And ironically, was also probably the start of my um, foray into work-life balance challenges, I would say. So,
Nice.
I do this focus on work-life balance now because I did have a struggle with it at one point, and that job was definitely one of them. I think it was one of these where I was working an average of about 90 hours a week, and was very, very, very crazy.
Yeah.
But again, it was another period that stood out as being this really high level of discomfort, right? Because
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
say that I was going to go from this kind of somewhat, administrative role to being like the one that was entirely in charge and responsible for a lot of really important things for everybody, in the company
Yeah.
or everybody at
That's
that location, was very big.
that is a big jump, and having to trust yourself again that you could do it. That's
Yeah, and I think, so one of the biggest things that always comes to mind for me when I think about trust, I said this earlier, that I think it's really about trusting yourself to figure it out, right? And so what always comes to mind with that is, I think sometimes when we're in periods of discomfort or we're scared about something, sometimes we feel like everything is on our shoulders, and that is part of what makes it so uncomfortable or so scary. And the reason that this really stood out to me was because it was about me figuring it out, but it was about me figuring it out with the resources that were available to me. So I had, the manager that recommended me for the role. She and I had a really great relationship. She had been in this role before, so she was able to, help me understand what it would look like. I knew I could come back to her and use her as a resource if I ever was looking for guidance. And then it also, I mean, in this case, it happened to be a role that had a decent amount of training to it too, right? The company had a decent training program that, I want to say was like 6 weeks or something. So I knew that I was going to be given information and resources, and that there would be things at my fingertips that I could use. And I wasn't
yeah.
just going to be out there on my own. And so that I think that's why it stood out to me as another great example, because it doesn't have to be about trusting only in yourself, but it can also be about trusting yourself to use your resources appropriately and ask for help where you need it, which is really hard sometimes, but also leads to really amazing results. So,
Yes, it does. You're right. It is so hard sometimes to reach out and to ask for help, and because you feel like, oh, I've got
mhm,
to do all this thing. But I love how you said they had a great training program. You had people you could talk to, and
mhm.
that's using your resources to figure it out. Because
Yeah.
you know you are perfect. You're amazingly capable.
Right.
You're gonna need a little help still,
Thank you.
but
Well, I appreciate that, but yes, I mean, I think no matter how capable you are, right? Like everybody needs help every now and then,
yeah.
um, yeah, I think that was really the big thing, and it's funny because I think of that very similarly, right? Like the one of the next big things that really came to mind as I was exploring this topic was then actually opening my business, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Because and it's funny because it connects to that in a very different way, right? So one of the biggest things that I learned with opening a business and becoming an entrepreneur, right, is the rules are entirely different, right? So, so when you're in a corporate career or you have a day job, right, your expectations are very laid out. It's very easy to understand the rules and what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong and how to modify and what you need to learn next. And entrepreneurship is an entirely different beast, and there are no rules.
Yes.
It's kind of a nice, kind of fun, wild west situation. But it was really interesting, I think, for me because what I learned in that experience with that first real big development in my corporate career, right? To use my resources and ask for help in different ways. And that ended up playing out a lot with my business. So when I opened my business and I had no idea where to start, what I ended up doing to begin with was I just started creating a network of people who had been there or people who were in similar situations. And, even if it was people who were in the exact same place as me. We had so many discussions to like see what was working, what was the other person trying, what worked for them, what didn't. And again, it's one of those things I think it it stood out to me as another moment of trust in myself in a few different ways. So it was that trust to keep learning and to keep trying different things, that period of trial and error, because again, one of the biggest areas that so many of us have discomfort in is the unknown.
Yes.
And it's when you're starting off as an entrepreneur, everything is unknown. Unless you've gone through those business courses or you've done that, you've done a more traditional path. There are a lot of question marks out there, and so I think that was so big because I had to trust myself to keep trying and to keep keep doing new things and keep learning from those things and to essentially not give up, right? Because when everything that you're doing is trial and error and everything is learning, it could be a little bit disheartening at times, and so you have to, kind of trust yourself to take those moments of rest and reflection when it really makes sense. And then also know when to pick up and move forward or when to try something different.
Yeah. I love how you said that everything's a question mark and you just have to keep trying because in the Wild Wild West analogy really, I
Yes.
think really hits it on the head. You're like, yeah, for a long time, like this one part of the country was real civilized, and then the further west you went, the
Right.
more wild things became, and that's entrepreneurship, right? You're just
It is. It's so funny. It's actually it's one of the things that I think I love the most about it now, at this point, because it really is about kind of like molding things to fit what you're looking for, what your business needs, what your clients need. And so it's really kind of a beautiful experience when you've gone through it a little bit and you've had some time to reflect on it. But in the moment, like when you're first starting off, it's scary as all get out.
yeah, that's a true story right there. Well, that's awesome. And how long ago did you start your business?
Oh, about 2 years ago.
2 years.
Yes. Yeah, it was actually really fun because I had never actually really known anything about coaching, and then I actually went through a coaching certification as part of a development track for my corporate career,
Mhm.
where they wanted me to get some experience with executive coaching, and I just absolutely fell in love with it. So it was
Yeah.
just one of these things that when I went through that, I just loved everything about it, loved the impact that it had on me and my life as I was going through that certification. And then just, became kind of a passion project. And that's how it became my business because I wanted to be able to take that impact that I had for myself and help others experience the same thing.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it. Just, I'm like, hey, wait, this is cool. More people need this.
Yeah. Yes, yes, absolutely. It makes so much sense when you understand it.
Yeah, you're like, oh yeah, I got it. This is cool. More people need to get
Yes,
this.
yes.
That's awesome. And you still decided to stay with your corporate job. Is that something you're going to continue with your corporate job, or is that yeah?
Yeah, yeah. So that's the plan right now. So it's funny because that's when I think about work-life balance, since that's what I focus on in my coaching and in my business, right, is work-life balance for overachievers, right? A big part of that in my mind, at least, and what I talk through with my clients is understanding like what are the things that you're really fulfilled by and how do you make space and time for those those things, right? And
Yeah.
so I still love my corporate career and my career in human resources. There are a lot of things that are really fulfilling about that for me. And so I wanted to make space to be able to do both of them. And what I've really found is that they really work well in synthesis, right? So the more I coach and the stronger I become as a coach through my business, the more effective it makes me in my corporate career, and the more I'm able to help others through that. And then, having that corporate career still makes me kind of face some of those challenges that a lot of my clients face on a regular basis. So. Um, I have fresh opportunities on a regular basis through the demands of that, the priorities and projects that will come up with it to, kind of like test
Mhm.
myself and refresh for myself, everything that I work with my clients on from a work-life balance perspective.
That's awesome. I love how you talk about still being like being fulfilled in your corporate job because so many entrepreneurs are like,
Yeah.
I just didn't like it. I didn't love what I was doing. And so that's why they went into entrepreneurship. But you just wanted to be able to help more people.
Yeah, well, so what's funny about that, and I love that you bring that up because I think that is something that you hear so much, and if I'm being 100% honest, that I have not always felt that way. So there have been points where I was like, no, I'm done. Like I want the business and I'm out of here. And a lot of that I found as I did my own work with my own coaches and just my own self coaching, right, is I started to realize that a lot of it was in how I was thinking about my work, and I had kind of lost touch with the things that were very fulfilling for me. And I was focusing on a lot of the things that were maybe a little bit harder to deal with or a little bit more frustrating, which, every job and in fact, every business is going to have those. And the reality is you have to find that balance in being able to pay attention to those things and understand when they are telling you something, right? Telling you that it's time for a change. But also being able to understand when it's just your brain messing with you, right? So what I mean by that is a lot of times when we are pushed out of comfort zones, since that's kind of what we're talking about a little bit today, right?
Yeah.
When we're being asked to be pushed out of comfort zones, or to work with something that is a little bit frustrating or a little bit unusual, our tendency a lot of times is to focus on the more negative, right?
Mm.
And focus
Yeah.
on the things that are not working the way that we want. And so that I had to do a lot of work to kind of reconnect myself to the pieces that I really loved about it. And as soon as I was able to do that, it was an entirely different world, right? Like now, then it completely, I guess I would say, reconnected me to the joy of those. And like I said, I truly feel at this point that the two, my corporate career and my business complement each other
Yeah.
really well in a way that I wouldn't receive if I was doing just the business.
Yeah. And I love that how it's this mindset shift that you went through of
Hmm.
learning to focus on the good things because I kind of have been having this thought a lot lately. It's like we find what we look for, right? So if we're
Yes.
looking for the bad, we're always going to find the bad, the hard, the ugly, whatever. But if
Mm-hmm.
we're looking for the good and, ooh, I really like this part of the job, and that's what we're going to
Right.
find, I think that's a beautiful
Yes.
example of that.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're 100% right. I think so many times when we're struggling with work-life balance or we're frustrated with something, the first thing that we go to is that we just need something different. Like I need a different job, I need a different manager, I need a different position, I need a business instead of a company, right?
Yeah.
And it all makes sense, right? Like what we tend to focus on is what we believe to be the source of that angst or whatever it
Yeah.
is that's driving that thought process. um, but you're exactly right. Sometimes it's just shifting your thought and shifting to pay attention to what is actually working.
Yeah.
For me, when I did that, I found that there were actually so many more things that I really loved about my corporate job that if I stepped away from it, I would lose those things, right? So then I had to do a little bit of a analysis, right? Like was the value of those things worth more than the struggle that I had? And once I did that and realized that I was getting a lot more value from it, it kind of opened that door for me to start focusing on that value rather than focusing on the things that I was frustrated with.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's beautiful. I love that of because everybody also like sometimes people like the answer, they always say the answer, oh, you just got to find something different. You got to do something different. And
Hmm.
well, if you go into the something different is the same negative Nancy, then
Well, yes. Well,
it's
that's what
gonna
I was
be
gonna
the
say. So,
same.
so it's one of those things, right? Like sometimes that is the answer, right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes you
Yeah.
do have to go to something
Sometimes
different.
you
Like
do.
that is the reality. Sometimes that's the case. But then I think in order to really make that a valuable experience, you have to be able to look and think through what's going to be different about
Yeah.
that new thing, right? Whether it's the new job or a new manager or whatever the case is, like what's going to be different about them? And here's the challenge, right? Is the only thing you can truly control in life is yourself, right? and
Yes.
so and
So
so
true.
and so if you can't control what your new boss will be like, or you can't control what the new company is going to be like, the most effective use of your time is to start thinking about what you can control with yourself
Yeah.
and how you will handle those different situations. And it becomes really powerful when once you start to realize that, right? Because then maybe you don't have to do the new job. Maybe you can stay and be completely happy with where you're currently at.
Yeah. No, I love that. Of like, wait, that is true. It is I think, a really serious conversation that you need to have with yourself of like,
Hmm.
what can I change? What do I have control over? And
Yeah.
because you're right, maybe sometimes you don't need to go through the stress of a new job and all of that. Maybe it's just changing your mindset and seeing
Hmm.
what's awesome about where you are. And though, well, then you're
Yeah.
also right. Sometimes there is a needed change,
Right.
but that's
Yes. Yeah,
that is the
have to
answer
be very
sometimes.
clear.
Yeah.
To be very clear about that, that it's not, and also I think the other thing that's really important to say with this, right, is it's not, when we're talking about changing the mindset, it's not talking about like just being, forcing yourself to be positive or,
Yeah.
turning a blind eye to things that are not working well. But I do think what it's about sometimes is challenging yourself to see what the other possibilities are, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
a lot of times, and this is kind of a broad statement, but it does apply to so many things. When we get into those moments of frustration that are external, right? And they're rooted in those things that are separate from us. A lot of times that frustration is rooted in what we believe the root cause of that to be, right? So
Yeah.
you're frustrated with your boss because they just don't give you any information and that really bothers you, or you're frustrated with them because they're a micromanager, or you're frustrated with the company because of that. Like a lot of times we make those assumptions based on very little information.
Yeah.
And that colors what our experience is of it. And so sometimes just doing a little bit of digging and trying to understand, is that really the reality of the situation? Is it possible that something else is going on? Um, you know, it can make everything that you're experiencing take on a completely different story.
Yeah.
So it's not about changing, like turning something that is truly negative into a positive and just forcing it to be positive, but it's looking for the genuine possibility
Yeah.
that there may genuinely be good there. That's actually happening.
Yeah. I love that. It's not taking this and just forcing positive things.
Right, right.
But you're right. There is a lot of things that I think we can, wait, what's actually going on? How do I, there's more. I think it's about being truly open-minded and
Yes,
curious about what's going on and what's behind
yes,
things instead of just assuming that we have all the answers.
yes.
So that's awesome.
Absolutely. Curiosity is one of my favorite words. So so it
Yes.
is. That's a very it's a good call out because the more curious you are about well, I should say it this way. When you are curious, you're not approaching it with any assumptions, right? If
Yeah.
you're just approaching something with a like, why is this happening? Or why is this person acting this way? Or, whatever the situation is, you you remove your own judgment or your own assumptions from the situation. And a lot of times, I mean, I've experienced this myself in so many cases where I thought I had enough facts to make a reasonable judgment or a reasonable assumption on something, and then later found out I was entirely wrong. And it's that moment of like, oh man, like you realize that and
Okay.
go, gosh, well, I would feel completely different if I had known that. So,
Yeah. Oh,
yes, yes.
that's awesome. Yeah, it's true. I think more often than not, we don't have nearly as many good of an idea of what's going on as we think we do.
Right.
Um,
Absolutely.
but again, that's part of it, getting out of your own head and being curious to what's really going on.
Yeah. 100%.
That's awesome. I love it
Yeah.
so much.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, is there more that you experiences you wanted to share or
So I think the final thing that really came to mind as I was thinking about this is probably the most I guess maybe I shouldn't make that judgment that it's the most interesting. It was the most interesting for me because it was a little bit um, maybe outside the box thinking. So when we think about I said that I primarily work with overachievers with work-life balance.
yeah.
And one of those, if you think about that, right, especially somebody who is in a position where they are in a corporate job and they've got deadlines, or they are running their business and they're trying to hit certain milestones, whatever the case is, one of the biggest tendencies that I think people and especially overachievers have is this fear of not getting things done, right? Like fear that they're not going to meet the deadline, or fear that they'll be behind on the work and not be able to finish it, or any type of fear along those lines that kind of relates to failure, right?
Yeah.
And and what I have found is it's that fear of failure, that fear of not getting it done, that is one of the biggest contributors to us wanting to work extra hours, or like maybe if I just work this morning and start a few hours early, I can get it done. Or maybe if I work
Yeah.
tonight, or I skip my date, or I skip my outing with my friends, if I can just get a little bit further ahead, it's it's almost, if you think about it, a lack of trust that
Mm,
you'll be able to get it done. And so that was one of the really big ones that really stood out to me as I was thinking about this, is as I've had to do my own work on my own work-life balance, that's one of the biggest things that I really had to build was trust in myself to get things done, right? Like I
Hmm.
have to trust that the next day I will prioritize appropriately to meet that deadline, that I will adjust my calendar or I will change the expectations of what, has been laid out. Any, whatever that looks like is going to be different for each situation, but it's it's kind of an interesting angle on that trust in yourself. But I wanted to call that out because it was just like I said, it was so different for me, such a different self-trust model than any of
Yeah.
the other experiences that I had really gone through before.
I love that you brought that up because it is a very different way of thinking about it. Like, oh, just me pushing through now means I'm not trusting myself tomorrow to do it. And
Right.
trusting that I need this break and that it's going to be beneficial for me and come back tomorrow and be better. That's a
Yes.
very interesting way of looking at it. I had never thought about it that way.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it's it's such a different angle because I think so much of the time we're focused on, again, we're focused on the external thing, right? So we're focused
Mhm.
on the work itself or the workload or the deadline or, whatever is happening that's external. Um, but I've said this before, so because I've had this discussion with other people where, even in my corporate job, a lot of times we'll have very crazy deadlines and very, a lot of high priority things happening all at once. And when I sometimes talk about those to people, one of the first things that I hear is, well, are you going to have to, work this weekend to get that figured out? Or are you going to have to like, do we need to cancel tonight? Whatever the case is, that's one of the first reactions people think of is to just add more time.
Mhm.
And my reaction now has become, oh no, I don't need, I'm not going to work tonight. I'm not going to work this weekend. I'm just going to have to get creative. Like that's it. like these are my hours. This is what
Yeah.
I'm set on, right? I just have to get creative when I come back in tomorrow, and I have to think a little bit differently about how I can meet this change, or I can, change what it is that I'm working on to make sure that happens. So um, it's very different than what I used to think when I was working 90 hours in that first big responsibility job. I laugh about
Yeah.
it because that was the case. I think at one point in that job, I was coming into work um, 6 hours earlier than I
Oh,
needed to
oh my goodness.
at one point.
Ah,
And yeah, obviously working extra hours did not keep me from, did not help me actually get the work done any differently. I would have had to think differently about it to
yeah.
actually really have an impact. So
Yeah, that's a great point to bring up too, is it's sometimes it's throwing more hours at it is not what you need to do. You need to figure out a different way to do it because
yes,
clearly what you're doing is not working if, like you said, you're working 90 hours a week and still not getting it done.
yes, that's one of the things that I talk through with my clients, right? Is if you
Mhm.
find yourself in that spot of your first inclination is just to work more hours, it's a good opportunity to pause and reflect, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different ways that you can get creative with that, right? Sometimes it is, um, you know, bringing in help to get that work done, or level setting the expectation, with the person that you owe it to and saying, hey, something has changed and we need to change the deadline. I mean, there are a lot of different ways that you
Yeah.
can get creative with your workload when that comes up. And so I would always challenge that to anybody who is struggling with work-life balance, or you find yourself in that situation. Trust yourself to
Yeah.
find a creative solution to it, before you take on that responsibility of just working extra hours.
Yeah. I love that because I love that because I look back on our even sometimes now I see that too. It's like, oh, I just got to spend more time on this. I know I need to spend more productive time on it,
Right.
which is a different, totally
It is very
different.
different.
You're like,
Oh, yes,
well,
it is.
I can take a break. It reminds me of my excuse me, my dad, he said when he was in college, he never studied the night before a test. He
Okay.
said, if I don't know it by now, I'm not going to know. Like one night of
Yeah.
studying is not going to help. He says,
Right.
so he would always go out dancing the night before. Like
Nice. I
he had
love
a test. You know what I mean?
that.
He's like, if I don't know it by now, like cramming 3 hours and not getting good sleep is not going to help me. So I'm going to go
No,
dancing.
no, and you know what I would say about that, right? Is probably going out and dancing probably ended up helping him more than anything
Yeah.
because doing that, took his brain off of it, like helped divert attention to something that was more positive. I mean, there's so many
Yeah.
things that are beneficial about doing something along those lines rather than even just sitting at home. Because I think that's the other thing we sometimes do is when we're stressed about work or we're worried about deadlines or things like that, sometimes the inclination is to just not do anything else, and then you're sitting at home stressed about that test
Yeah.
rather than you're still not getting any rest.
Yeah. You're not going to get any rest. It's not really helpful. Just go do
Right,
something
right.
fun and then come back to it. And
Yes.
yeah,
He probably went out and he had fun dancing and he slept great because he was tired from dancing.
probably. So yeah,
That's awesome. I love it.
it's just, I think about that all the time. I thought about that in college a lot. Like, I still did quite a bit of cramming, but I'm like, maybe I should just go dancing.
Right, right. It's always good to go dancing.
Always good to go dancing. True
Yes.
story. True story. I love it. Well, that is some amazing, brave stories that you have shared with us.
Oh,
I
thank
love
you.
them. This has been super helpful.
Oh,
Well, thank you so much for Taryn for sharing those stories with us. So much wisdom, so many beautiful little, not even so little, like amazingly big, good gold nuggets that we've got
oh, thank you.
in our time together. Where can people find you if they are overwhelmed and overachievers that want to find you and get your help?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. Absolutely. So I do have a website. My business is Happy Thoughts Coaching. So it's just happythoughtscoaching.com. I also am always happy to connect with people directly on Facebook. And then I do also have a Facebook group that is Work-Life Balance for Overachievers, where we specifically talk about these types of things and a lot of good nuggets in there. So absolutely happy to see anybody who needs some help with this.
Awesome. And we will also link those in the show notes below so that she is very, very easy to find. People can find you as well. And any last
Um,
thoughts that you have on being brave and trusting yourself?
I think I just want to say, I mean, thank you to you for inviting me on here, but then also just having this podcast to begin with. I think one of the, I think when you and I were talking about this and what I've heard you say in the podcast, right, is it's this wonderful opportunity to look at how we're brave in our day-to-day lives. And I think this was a really lovely gift for me to even just kind of think through and reflect back on those moments where I felt particularly brave.
Yeah.
Because I didn't necessarily in the moment, right? Like in the moment, I just felt scared or something along those
Yeah.
lines. And so I just want to say thank you for the gift that you brought to me for this, but also the gift you're bringing to everybody else in doing this podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad that
Oh,
it is can be that for people. That's the whole point of the podcast, is to help people
yeah,
stop and reflect
absolutely.
on those brave moments, because I mean, you're right. When the moment in the moment, we don't think about being brave. We just are
Hmm.
trying to survive, and then later we realize, hey, wait a minute. I was brave before. I could be brave again.
Right.
Like, look
Yes,
at all these
absolutely.
brave things that I've done. Like, this isn't gonna kill me. Just feels like
Right.
it, maybe. Uh,
Yes. Sometimes.
awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been so fun to have you on. And yeah,
Well,
thank you.
thank you. I hope you have a great rest of the day.
I will. You too. Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed what you've heard today, please leave a review down below and share this with anyone that you feel like could use a little more brave in their life. And if you'd like to follow more of my journey to be brave, you can follow me on social media and link down below. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to be brave.